Hello everyone and welcome to Fleet's Random Ramblings 61. Yes, we're back, and because we didn't have Ramblings on Monday, because we had the Drake's Drum Dreadnought Dissection, as you all know, we're back once again with Ramblings 61. It is going to be done today, because obviously we can't have it on Monday, because Monday was the Drake's Drum Dreadnought Dissection. And so, yes, we're here. Marvelous, fantastic, all the good stuff. How is everyone doing? You all having a good time? Well, those of you who are here, which is no one right now, but we will. We're 5 subscribers away from 300. Big number. Once we're past 300, we're on our way to 500. We're getting there. We're getting there. We're nearly past $30, because it's all in American money, on Patreon every month, which is fantastic. People actually want to pay me to do this job. It's incredible, and I cannot say how grateful I am to all of you for the opportunity. It always will never cease to amaze me how much support you people are willing to give me. It's insane. I just want to say how grateful I am. And now we'll get the Discord audience in and get cracking. Don't, Sidious, I swear to God. Also, second, oh, really, people? I have noticed that more people are coming into Ramblings who are joining the dry dock, which is actually nice to see. I'm not complaining, mind you, not at all. And anyone on YouTube? Wow, it's a quiet day today, isn't it? Crikey. Everyone knows I do my ramblings on a Friday. Did everyone think I suddenly popped my clothes because there was nothing on Wednesday? I needed a rest. I'm not perfect. God, if I was perfect, ugh, how boring would life be? Nothing to strive for, nothing to do. Good Lord, I'd probably go do Lally. Right, so it's literally just Darth Sidious today. Sorry, and Blackburn Maximus. So you two, so Blackburn Maximus, who is active on YouTube, and Darth Sidious, who is Darth Sidious. I have to do ramblings for at least 2 hours, maybe 3. Then we've got Fleets Fun Friday in my own Discord server. By the way, link to the Discord server is down in the video description. So anybody who wants to join the Discord server can find that link in the description of the video. So if anyone wants to do that, I can't post it in the Discord server, in the Dry Dock Discord server, because that would break the server's self-advertising rules, which I bloody helped write many years ago. Yes, you can start asking. Oh, and here's Knight, old reliable Knight. Always can be counted on to appear. Man never misses a video. Old reliable Knight. Can always be counted upon. Right. Can we start asking? So, first things first, the obvious joke question. Is cereal a soup? Nope. And I'm still not used to you being a communications officer, even though I asked for you to be a communications officer. It's still weird to me. So, first real question is from Knight61 on YouTube. So, according to Japanese Wikipedia, the Taiho class had a magazine total of 48 Type 91s, aerial torpedoes, and 432 3-4 unguided bombs, but how trustworthy is that? I don't know. You'd have to go and check the archives, I guess. Or ask someone who is well read on Japanese carriers. But I see no reason to discount that, as that sounds about right for a carrier. Just based on how big her air wing is, how much aircraft she's expected to carry, how long she's expected to be out on operations without returning to a port for resupply, that sounds about right. Given that those free fall bombs would be a mix of various different sizes and not all of the largest size, so that does sound about right. And 48 torpedoes is about, yeah, that honestly, Knight, it may not be exactly on the money, but if it isn't, it's pretty near what the probable figures would be. Dalcidius asks, if the Germans didn't went for torpedoes on their battlecruiser, do you think Luxau would have survived her fight? If she remained in the fight, how would this impact the battlecruiser engagement? Dalcidius, it's worth pointing out Luxau doesn't sink until the gun engagements are done with. Because it's that torpedo compartment flooding that drags her down gradually by the bows. So she was in all of the actions, I believe, even after as that torpedo flat progressively flooded. I'll just check that, but I'm fairly certain she didn't sink until after the... Yes, so she is not sunk. She doesn't sink until after all of the gun actions are concluded. So the only thing you're changing by removing that torpedo flat, if she takes a torpedo hit in the same place, it's... Sorry, not a torpedo hit. A shell hit in the same place, it's likely to be very easily controlled and managed, meaning that she will survive the Battle of Jutland and live on to fight another day. Blackburn Maximus asks, favourite French pre-dread besides Hoche? I'm not gonna lie, I have a soft spot for... Well, first things first, Hoche isn't a pre-dreadnought. The first French pre-dreadnought is arguably the battleship Brennus. Hoche and her three half-sisters, the Marceau class, are the last of French ironclads. But yeah, so in terms of pre-dreadnoughts, honestly, controversial opinion. I like the Charles Martels because they show this because they show this weird transition in French shipbuilding. They show the various styles that the French experiment with in terms of what a modern all-steel battleship looks like. Because this is one of the things that everyone forgets about the Charles Martels. Yes, the yards did tinker aggressively, and yes, the design that was offered was basically only a rough guide for the yards to follow. But the reason that you get a lot of divergence between the ships is that these 5 ships are France's first all-steel battleships. And all 5 of them are different experimentations in how you build an all-steel battleship. I'm not saying it's the right choice to make, but given that the French Navy was coming back from not building battleships at all and had only built, before the Charles Martels, 5 ships, so that's Hoche, the 3 Marceau class broadside ironclad, not broadside, sorry, barbette ironclads, and then their first pre-dreadnought, which was Brennus, and she attempted to do too much on too small displacement. The Charles Martels were both too conservative to try and avoid the mistakes with Brennus, aka the fact that she was so unstable and so low to the water that she had real problems, and they succeeded with all of the Charles Martels to avoid that problem, and to try and put tenders out to different yards to see what works, what doesn't. The Charles Martels are basically experimental, the prototypes of what a French pre-dreadnought can be, in essence. And you'll notice they take the best of the designs that come out of the Charles Martel class pre-dreadnoughts. Well, more accurately, it depends. Depends entirely on whether you consider them one class or different. But I like to consider them a class of ships, and they take the best of the concepts that come out of the Charles Martel classes, and they build the Charlemagnes, which basically come to the traditional pre-dreadnought style. But again, you wouldn't have seen the uniform class of ships that was the Charlemagne class pre-dreadnoughts if the French hadn't been able to basically build 5 prototypes of what a pre-dreadnought can be, of what an all-steel battleship can be. It also showed them what not to do, because French pre-dreadnoughts only went up and up in capability after after the Charles Martels. So where was I? So yeah, Knight's the one saying about what the exact bomb types that the Japanese carrier can carry: 72,000, 1,760 pound bombs, 72 1,100 pound bombs, 144 500 and 130. Honestly, yep, like I said, sounds about right. You've got a smaller number of larger bombs and then more smaller bombs. Yeah, that honestly sounds about right. So that was Did this. If Warspite was sunk during Jutland, how would the Royal Navy in the interwar years look like, and World War II? Any other ships we would see retained? I can't make an accurate judgment call on this. I don't feel confident answering that question myself, because I'm not as into the minds of the officers as certain other members of the panel, of which there aren't, and it's just me today, would be. However, my thinking would be, if you've lost the tonnage of a Queen Elizabeth, and you still want something to fill that slot, you might see Tiger be retained, but it's more likely what you're going to see is you're going to see one of the Revengers given a major upgrade. So most of the Revengers will be in their usual state, but I think one of the Revengers will almost be QE-ified, if that makes sense. So brought up to equivalent speed, firepower, and protection capability as a modernized Queen Elizabeth to make up for the... Or well, you know, so... Or they'll just modernize a different Queen Elizabeth. It just depends. You're not really looking at that big of a change. The most real change here is... what's the word? The, Oh, sorry, the outcomes of the war, or anything else from that matter, because there are plenty of Queen Elizabeths knocking around. The loss of one is not going to be that big of a deal, and if worst comes to worst, they may just build another Revenge or build something else alongside Hood, or they may build another Admiral. There are options, but there will be something else that will replace her. Probably prior to Washington, and will be retained post-Washington. What that ship looks like, I do not feel confident saying, because there are so many options for what could replace a lost Queen Elizabeth that I don't feel confident calling that. Blackburn Maximus asks, favourite French aircraft of the interwar years? Oh, that's gotta go to the glorious six-engine transatlantic flying boat that I forget the name of. Gorgeous looking aircraft. Just really gorgeous looking aircraft. Really can't fault it at all. Just a lovely, lovely airframe. Just looks really nice. And not bad performance after all. So that was the YouTube question. That was the YouTube question. Now I want Discord, which is... Oh boy. From World War One map with map 1 to post-war World War. Thoughts on the post-war environments. This is that whole Britain joins the Entente. So first things first, Japan wouldn't have the state of Manchuria. Although it depends on how well war in China goes. And Japan having Indochina is a toss-up between whether they get it or whether the Germans would get it. Again, it's difficult to say who would fight most for it. So that's the first real thing I do have a problem with. Second thing, Austria-Hungary should be in the middle of a collapse. I'm sorry, but any great war leads to that nation's collapse. And probably the Anschluss of the German parts of the empire into Germany. And a scramble amongst various other powers for whatever is left. Probably with the Italians achieving their goals of seizing the Adriatic coast as Austria just naturally collapses under its own weight. it's not possible for the Austrian Empire to survive the Great War, even if it wins. It's just an impossibility. It doesn't work. So I'm just going to very quickly save this so I can bring it up for the main audience, if I can be allowed to. Let me just show this to the rambling audience very quickly. Hang on. Oh, that won't do at all. Let me just bring this up. Oh my god, that is huge. That is massive. Shrink it down. There, that'll do. So, there we go. So, if as much as people can see that, I hope you can see fairly detailed. It's, but yes, so, again, so, the French retain North Africa, probably because they're trying to be lenient in the peace. That makes some sense. Again, Tunisia to Italy, makes some sense. Ottoman Empire, which obviously was obviously not part of this conflict, which is honestly the best thing for them. They're now going to be heavily dependent on British and German trade to survive. There shouldn't be 3 independent Baltic states, for starters. You should have the German plan for the Baltics being implemented. However horrific that may be, it's still what the German Empire would have done with their plans for the Baltic states. So the 3 independent Baltic states that we know of historically should not exist. Finland is far too big. That is Finland at its greatest extent during as in what they wanted from the peace deal during the Second World War. That is not the borders that Finland would have gone independent with. Finland should have its historical borders. There is no reason for it to have those extended borders in any way. It's also not feasible, given that Russia probably collapses into communist revolution, and therefore the peace that is concluded would not be this, Finland owning this, basically. The United States of America would probably not be looking to annex Mexican land. There's no reason for them to annex Mexican territory. A simple reorganization of the Mexican government and some form of protectorate are all you would realistically see for the Mexicans. Again, same thing with Britain. Why is Britain annexing portions of Mexico? It makes no sense. Again, you probably want some economic concessions. You don't really need to see or want to see from either side annexations of territory. It makes no sense. Especially off Mexico, which is by this point a state that, again, it's the same thing. Why would you annex territory off of Mexico as either Britain or America? It's just extra things to administer. You slap them for joining the war. You slap them with economic sanctions. You basically disarm their nation entirely and then say, don't do it again or we'll come and slap you harder. And then Mexico collapses in on itself in another set of civil wars, and you consider yourself a job done and go home. Apart from that, I don't really have too many problems. Apart from the fact that the Tsardom of Bulgaria is huge. Why is Bulgaria huge? Well, actually, I know why, because Serbia lost the war. Yeah, I keep forgetting that. But yeah, Austria-Hungary should not be... It should be in the... If this is not supposed to be the 20s, Austria-Hungary should have either collapsed or still be in the process of collapsing. Also, why is German... Oh, I suppose you can see German Shandong somewhat expanded. China should be fractured. There is no way Chinese unity survives a loss like this. It should fracture. It should be fractured and fracturing into imperial warlords. So into warlords generally. That is far too unified for China. Just massively so. The fact that China was even able to join the war is something I question. Massively. But again, that's just what I have to say on that matter. That's pretty much all I've got to say on that. So, Next question. Let me just go to that. So, YouTube question. Favorite French tank pre-Cold War? Oh, it's gotta go to the H series. The H and the R. The H-35, the H-39, and the R-35. Just lovely, beautiful infantry tanks. Just perfect. Fairly mobile, decently mechanically reliable. A gun that can do infantry support and deal with most enemy armor at the time. A machine gun by the coax for machine gun support. Just an armored far better than any of their contemporaries. You've basically got an ideal tank for infantry support that will shrug off most anti-tank weapons. What's not to love? I mean, the lack of radios is a bit of a problem, to be sure, but all you've got to do is basically look around, like basically talk with the infantry commander before the operation starts, and go, okay, you advance behind my armor, and if things go wrong, like if I start taking fire, like I'll shell it. Like, as soon as I open a break in the machine guns, go forwards. Like the lack of radios is not an insurmountable problem. So, Brandon Larson, you were in command of a 1986 US carrier task force tasked with securing the Persian Gulf. What are you using to do this, and what is your overall strategy, as you'll be engaged by both Iraq and Iran and Iraq? First of all, if they're stupid enough to engage a full-on US carrier task group, I applaud their bravery, but admire their stupidity. Secondly, I'm sending my nuclear submarine that is with my carrier task force, because I'm a carrier task force, I have a nuclear submarine with me as escort. He's going northwards, and he is going to visually ID targets. Well, scout for me ID targets. I'm also going to make it clear that I am transiting the straits. Any engagement will result in an overwhelming response to try and limit the amount of force being engaged. Secondly, I question why Iraq's engaging me, because Iraq is on our side. We're the ones supplying them with weapons and funding to fight the Iran-Iraq war. So I question why Iraq is biting the hand that's feeding it. So I question why Iraq is even bothering, because Iraq is, yeah, like, why, especially, it's 1986. The Iran-Iraq war is still 2 years away from finishing. Iraq is not going to attack a US Harrier task group designed to secure the straits, which they benefit from. No, so I'm going to ignore that part of the question because it's very silly. Iraq is not going to attack a US carrier task group and then bite the hand that feeds it. So if I'm engaging Iran, I just do what we did in Operation Praying Mantis just 2 years early. Casually disembowel the Iranian Navy. And do it with contemptuous ease. What is the next thing? How much bigger of a magazine would a 39,200 to 44,700 ton Taiho with an air wing of 84 planes had? Honestly, Knight, no idea. No idea. That
would require going into full ship design.
No.
They pay people a lot of money to do that.
Yeah, no, no idea. So, I'm sorry, Brandon. You're sending more than one carrier up into the Persian Gulf. You're giving me 3 super carriers. That's overkill. That's aggressively overkill. But yeah, even so, like I just said, disembowel the Iranian Navy, gut their air force, if they try and come out and fight. If not, You don't touch me, I don't touch you. Simple rules of engagement. So that was that. So that was a YouTube question from Knight. Typical Gunner Officer asks, what if the USSR supplied North Vietnam with Komar? Oh, we've done that one. We've done that one already. Do you think the lack of an island superstructure on USS Langley CD-1 hinder the ability of aircraft operations and piloting of the ship since the bridge is at her bow? Well, no. The bridge at her bow is for navigation of the ship. On a carrier the size of Langley, you don't need an island, to be blunt, to conduct aircraft operations. The only reason that some Allied escort carriers had an island, although most of them did, but some of the early ones didn't, is because it was something they worked into the design. You don't need an island to operate aircraft. Ask every single one of the Japanese light carriers and Japanese escort carriers. They didn't have islands, and they worked out just fine. So from Knight, how likely is it that the Taiho suffered her second and fatal explosion that was Type 41 and bomb magazine going up? Impossible to know. Impossible to know. Without actually finding the ship and examining it, we'll never know for sure. And it could be any number of things. Darcidius, if the Soviets managed to get their hands on a single Ismail-class battlecruiser, how would she see service and how would she be modernized? So with the Ismail, you've basically given the Russians an extremely powerful surface asset. That ship is basically... Well, depends on whether they call it a Borodino-class battlecruiser or an Ismail-class battlecruiser, depends. But if they get that ship, you've got a ship that... It's a little bit slow, I grant you. But it's about the same armor layout as the Congos when built. It's capable of 26.5 knots, so it's very slow. But then again, it's operating in the Baltic, so it doesn't really need straight line speed as you would with an open ocean battlecruiser. The real thing, though, are the guns. You have 12 14-inch guns in 4 triple turrets. You've basically...
When are they getting her?
It doesn't really matter when.
Or is this just assuming they managed to finish one?
Yeah, assuming they finish
She would be the most powerful element of the Soviet fleet.
And you've basically... And it's not really unrealistic they can't maintain her. Because...
Yeah, honestly, yeah, no, I agree.
You've basically... She's fleet flag. She's fleet flag. That's obvious. She will be the first in for modernization. And again, with modernization, it's fairly simple. She just gets a gang at modernization, so better fire control, increased elevation, anti-aircraft guns plopped everywhere, but not much else than that. And you've basically got an asset that is fairly powerful. It's likely to be an asset that is sunk, either sunk, damaged, or survives. Is basically roll the dice, spin the wheel, take your chance on during the Second World War, and in the aftermath of the Second World War will have a similar career to the Gangets, helping to train the vast amounts of new personnel required for the drastic expansion of the Red Navy that occurs during the Cold War. And like the Gangets, will bow out of that role in the mid-50s, just like they did.
The only thing I would be concerned is that she might just be sunk.
Like I said,
German air power.
Like I said, this thing, roll the dice. That's all you can really do. Because she'll be in the Baltic. And it's a question of what she does and how she dies. But yeah, that's basically about the size of it. So that's If more stealth tumble home ships are built, and if the French build them, how would you feel about one being named Hoche? I think there is a. I think there is there. I don't know if there is a Hoche in the French Navy right now. I don't think there is a Hoche. So there's a French destroyer called Hoche. But if they build a new stealth ship and it is then they call it a Hoche, sure. There's nothing wrong with calling a ship the Hoche.
Yeah, like, right. As much as we might like to joke on about Fleet's love of Hoche and such, there genuinely isn't anything wrong with the name.
Yeah, I mean the name is.
And honestly, for her time, she's not the absolute worst.
Yeah, I mean it's named for one of
She's
the
just
generals of
appallingly
the
ugly.
French. It's named for one of the generals of one of the good generals of the French Revolutionary Wars, and one of the good ones, who died unfortunately too early. So where were we? That was that. Your typical gunnery officer asked, the 1945 British Pacific Fleet taking over the US carrier fleet versus combined fleet during the Battle of the Philippine Sea. Do you think the British can sink more IJN ships than the USN ever could? Also the RN subs can take over USN subs in the battle. To be blunt, if you're talking about the full 1945 British Pacific Fleet, you're talking more carriers. You've not brought in an equivalent force to the US fleet. You've brought in a superior force to the US forces that took part in the operation, the Battle of the Philippine Sea. If we're talking the full 1945 Pacific Fleet, so the question is honestly a little bit moot. If you have more aircraft, and by 1945 you also have better aircraft than the US would have at the time.
It's not even just also aircraft. There's also other surface assets that
and also
are quite numerous.
And also, if it's the British, if it's the British, they may not choose to shy away from a night surface engagement before the battle, which Lee, as we know, did. So yeah, I think the British are going to do better than the US, but that's not down to the British being better overall, or it's in some cases it is. It's just you've handed them more assets than the US had in the battle. And
I do also think their superior night fighting doctrine probably will.
Oh yeah, but like I say, there's going to be a surface action where there wasn't historically. But again, it's you've put a out of the French ships scrapped post-World War II, which one would you want to have been preserved? Honestly, one of the Dreadnoughts. One of the Dreadnoughts that was scrapped post-World War II. I feel like it's a good example. I feel like it could have been a good museum as for what happened during the war period. How it went through 3 different governments, serving first the original French government, then the Vichy government, and then the Free French. It will be a good way to not only preserve a warship from the age of the Dreadnoughts, but also to be a good example for the future history of, for the history of the French during this period. Typical gunner officer asks again, if Halsey didn't turn his Task Force 34 southwards during the Battle of Cape Engano to try and intercept Kurita, and instead focus on engaging Ozawa's forces, do you think Lee's... Oh wait, hang on, we've already answered this one! Ages ago, we've already answered it! So anyway, next question. What if the US skipped the landings on Luzon Island in 1945 and bypassed it completely? Do you think the US would invade Formosa instead, or just consolidate their gains and isolate Luzon from the air and sea? They don't. They just don't. If you're invading the Philippines, you're invading the Philippines.
They can't land on Formosa if they...
Okay,
Don't take me not out the Philippines.
First of all, you shouldn't be here. You should be in bed.
Oh?
You should be in bed resting that ankle of yours.
Fuck no, I'm working.
Yeah, no, you should be not doing that.
Anyway, I'm going to go mute it because I'm driving home now.
Yes. Yeah.
I'll pop up if Fleet sentiment completely fucking moronic.
Wow. Ow. But you were saying then, Fleet.
But yes.
Oh, what were those messages, Fleet?
Look, I like Foxo as much as the next man, but she seriously needs to rest. She can't be constantly keeping me up to task.
It
if
was
she,
told
if,
by the that she's work fit.
bollocks to that, politely. But anyway.
Also, you try and convince her to do that.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, you can't. If you've invaded the Philippines, why not invade Luzon as well? Why bypass it? There's nothing to gain. Nothing. You've already invaded the rest of the Philippines. Why stop now? You've already taken the Philippines, which was one of the two options. The other option being Formosa. And if you've already taken all of the rest of the Philippines, why wouldn't you finish the job and then go and take the islands you already decided you weren't going to take?
Actually, quick correction. Formosa can only come after the Philippines and after the North Islands of the Philippines have fallen.
Well, no, Foxo. The options were originally they said, do we bypass the Philippines and take Formosa, or do we take the Philippines? Those were the original options they considered. But they quite rightly realised you can't take Formosa without taking the Philippines first, and if you're taking the Philippines, you don't have to take Formosa. So, yeah.
Because the only place you could land in Formosa at that time and have a significant presence is fucking the South, I can't remember what it's called.
Yes.
Controlled by the Philippines.
Okay, so that was that. Blackman Maximus, do you have any of Norman Friedman's books? Sadly not. I do not have any of Norman Friedman's books. Brandon Larson, what if Halsey only took 3 of his carrier task forces and left one to cover the San Bernardino Strait during the Battle of Leyte Gulf? Well, you've got a carrier task force, a full-on carrier task force covering the San Bernardino Strait. That's not going to go well for Kurita. He will basically realize it basically boils down to Kurita will come through the San Bernardino Strait. They'll go, oh, things coming through the San Bernardino Strait, let's get them. They will then... He'll come under massed air attack. He'll be like, oh, bugger, the diversion didn't work. The Americans still have fleet carriers in the area, and they're outside of our gun range, which means we can't close with them and engage them before they can kill us. Therefore, we're going to turn around and go home. There isn't even the battle off. There isn't even the battle off Samar. As soon as Kurita realizes he is under fleet carrier attack, he will turn around and go home. Because at that point, he's already failed. The diversion has not worked. The US carriers are not away. And all he stands to do is lose his ships for no gain. So... 1981, according to the Wikipedia page, HMS Malta began construction in 1944, but how far along was HMS Malta really when she got cancelled? Off the top of my head, I wouldn't know. If the Wikipedia page doesn't tell you, I can't tell you more than that. Because my source for information would also be the Wikipedia page.
I can answer this.
If we can hear you.
And if you'd like to do so.
She had her keel laid and had her primary ribs were being installed.
Oh.
She wasn't very far.
Oh, there you go then.
She wasn't even a hull. She didn't have her engines. She was just a keel, essentially.
Hmm. There you are then. So, Admiral Wellesley asks, Azure Lane is nuts. Thoughts on Neptune from Hyperdimension, Neptunia's riggings in Azure Lane? If you want my honest answer,
You're not only combining Azure Lane, but also Hyperdimension Neptunia.
if you want my honest answer, it boils down to 2 words. It exists. That is my honest answer.
I have to remember, because that was one collab I actually wasn't around for, because I joined just before the New Jersey event. Where is that?
Black Max says, what if the Borodino class battlecruisers has been converted to carriers?
Not the worst.
So the thing is with the thing with the Borodino class battlecruisers that people need to realize is that while some of the basically when they're all finished, they're all about they're in various stages of completion. The only one that's realistically able to be completed is Ismail, simply because she's got 66% of her boilers, 66% of her engines, 36% of her armor, and you can get the rest of the percentages you need for everything else by gutting Borodino to complete her. So
you're also going to end up with a not great carrier, honestly.
So the carrier design was basically, from what I've read, the whole plan was you're basically looking at a. So she was going to have 8 7.2-inch guns. In what arrangement, whether they were going to be casemates or whether they were going to be single turrets is unknown. Have her armor reduced, capable of carrying 50 aircraft, and only going 0.5 of a knot faster. Not the worst thing, but bear in mind, if you do this, you don't have the option of using her much more advanced boilers than the ones that are put in the Gangets to rebuild the Gangets, because that's how the Gangets got their new boilers. They took the Ismail class's boilers that were left to replace their older boilers, because they were more power dense. Not by much, but it was enough that it helped the Gangets stay relevant. But yes, so you've got you are only ever going to get a single carrier out of this, and that will probably be Ismail herself. You've basically gotten a training carrier. Now, to be fair, it's probably not going to be the worst carrier in the world because it's not Bairn. Yeah, I'm not even joking. It will probably be better than Bairn. Especially given the sheer size of the Ismails. They're fairly long ships, so you'll get a fairly decent deck length and a fairly decent landing and takeoff run. And given how things go, you may not even have a resting gear in the first iteration of the ship. And that may come later.
Mostly that coming later because they realised, oh god, we need this.
But what that will mean is, it will mean that the right choice is made for a resting gear. As in, it will go at the rear. But it'll be earlier carrier, so you'll have the middle set and the rear set. And as aircraft change, the Russians will start using the middle set more because of how landing profiles are in the early days of carrier operations. But they'll also have the rear set being used occasionally, and then as the aircraft used get heavier, the rear set will become more and more used. You see how it goes, Dragon?
Hmm.
And so you'll likely enter the Second World War with Ismail. She probably will become the only capital unit in the Pacific. Basically because there's no use for a carrier in the Baltic. The Red Fleet. The Russians have wanted a asset in the Pacific for some time that's heavy, but didn't want to risk any of their capital units that they need to oppose the Germans in the Baltic. they don't need a carrier to oppose the Germans in the Baltic, and she's not really of much use there anyway. But in the Pacific, not only can they test her fairly well and practice air operations in a much more open environment that is more suited to her role, but it gives them a capital unit in the Pacific for the first time in years, operating out of Vladivostok. Which means that
So it can,
which means
if
she...
that should be a one of the Admiral conversions for the Royal Navy.
No, I wouldn't go that far. No, she wouldn't be equivalent to the Admiral conversion. She's much smaller. She's much slower.
Yeah.
She's much slower.
28 not battle cruisers as designed.
Yes, but they were going to be faster as carriers, whereas the Ismails are slower than the Admirals were as battle cruisers. And that's as a carrier. She's not.
The Ismail
She's not.
could get 30 because they're 28 knot ships.
No, they're not.
Remember correctly.
No, they're 26.5 knot ships, and that's flat out.
Oh, am I thinking of Poltava? I was thinking of Poltava.
The more advanced proposals for 28 knot, 29 knot ships were too expensive, and so the Navy asked the contractors to revise the Ismails down to be smaller and slower, but still keep the 12, 14-inch gun armament, which made sense, to be honest, given where they were operating and what the Russians needed. But yeah, that's basically. But what it will mean is that post-war, you'll have a core of Russian aviators, so that Russia will probably gain some form of straight deck carrier. Like straight deck carriers will probably be part of Stalin's building program.
They already were trying to be.
No, but what I mean is you've got the operational experience now for them to not just be paper plans that we're going to get to later at some point. It will become part of the trio. So you'd have the Kronstadts, you'd have the Sovietsy Soyuzes, and you'd have some form of fleet carrier, keel up fleet carrier.
Okay, my question would be: would we see naval IL-2s?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I have no doubt of that, because they are very good for strike, and I don't mean naval strike; I mean general strike. Because you probably not...
Project 71, that's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah, it may be Project 71, it may be something different, because we don't know what design choices, operational experience with carriers will lead the Russians to make. We don't know if they will change... Because, as I'm sure you're aware, Dragon, operational experience can lead to radically different design choices in different navies, even though they operate the same type of ship with similar capabilities.
I just recall, like, Project 71 is 39 through, like, 42 design. It's basically, what if we copy the Illustrious class?
Yeah, this is what I mean. Like, the Reds may not do that. They may go, we've had our own carrier, this is what we've learned, this is how our war games and our exercises have, had our, we don't know what this new carrier will look like. C-Dot has asked, a Trafalgar question. If HMS Victory fires full broadsides for 10 minutes, how much metal, in terms of mass, does she fire? Assume the guns start double-shotted.
But, I'll be honest, you can work that one out yourself.
It's supposed to be a Trafalgar question for me, and that's not really a question so much on Trafalgar, it's more... That's not really a question on Trafalgar, that's more basic mathematics. And I didn't come on Ramblings to do maths on my own show. I scraped through with a C on the retest in GCSE maths. I do not like maths.
Right. No, whoever sent that question, send it to me and I'll answer it for him in about 2 hours.
By which time I'll be doing Hearts of Iron 4 in my own server. Yay. Fleets Fun Fridays. They go places. RG asks on YouTube, what if at Leyte Gulf both Task Force 58 and the Force of Surigao Strait are present to reinforce Taffy 3? To be honest, if that is what the force that sat in front of Surigao Strait when... sorry, if that's the force that sat in front of the the Battle of Samar. He doesn't even bother. I'm sorry, but Kurita does not even bother. Like, Task Force 58, he can make a fight of it. But the standard battleships as well? No. I'm sorry, but Kurita's not a stupid admiral. He's not. He's gonna look at that and go, nope, 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 so much nope, he's gonna turn around and make billy big steps in the other direction. I didn't refuse to answer a question, C-Dot, as I am not, I don't even know what guns Victory had at the Battle of Trafalgar.
Well, I think that's why that basically asking it so that you have to make sure that you figure that all out.
Yes, but I don't want to go and do maths then. Just ask me how many guns Victory had at Trafalgar. Rather than making me do maths, I want to have fun on my own program, not
admittedly,
do something that I find
because Fleet
deliberately
is so
boring.
terrible. After all, we know Fleet is both bad at maths and English, so it probably would take him too long to actually calculate this to make ramblings interesting.
So that was. So I did.
Unfortunately, Victory's got like 10 guns more than Fleet has fingers. So he can't count on his fingers.
Shut up. Yuki asks, how much logistics when it comes to the Royal Navy, supplies and transports were done by rail, and what noteworthy things may have been shipped only by train to certain destinations, if any would at all? Well, basically every major logistics movement over a distance further than for the Royal Navy, basically every logistics movement that was in reach for railhead was done by rail. Everything. It's only with the rise of the large-scale articulated lorry, and even then, not completely, that you see logistics, period, when it comes to military transport, move away from rail.
Yeah, but if you talk about the Royal Navy, it's either shipping and coastal freight, or it's riverine. Because stuff like armor belt guns were transported in riverine.
Depends. Depends. Not
Why
all
do you
the
still have
time.
the big on major rivers?
Yeah, again, it depends. If those rivers do not exist, then rail is your option, and rail is what they did. Like, if you can transport it by boat, you do, but because it's easier. But if you can't, you transport it by rail, because you can do that by rail.
But unless you're talking about food for the sailors, in which case it comes from wherever.
And probably goes by rail.
No, probably goes by coastal shipping.
No, it goes by rail, especially if it's food.
If it's food and it's canned, it goes by ship.
No, it goes by rail. I think you overstate the value, the role of coastal shipping here.
I think people don't understand how much coastal shipping happened back then.
No, I'm not discounting it, but what I am saying is for cargoes for... Because logistics is a time-sensitive cargo for any military. And if you have an option of sending logistics by rail, or sending logistics by sea, and you have rail as an option, then you go with rail. Because it's logistically a better option. And you aren't actually missing that much in terms of throughput, because you can make up for the loss in raw mass that a coastal freighter... And again, depends on the coastal freighter, depends on the time period. It depends entirely on whether a coastal freighter will carry more than a freight train.
I think that's what's going on here.
It's a case of, for navies, a lot of logistics is done months in advance.
It's done what?
Months in
It's done in advance.
Yes, I get that.
And navies, unlike armies, where they're constantly moving.
It depends.
A navy, it's just cheap to stick it on a boat because you've already got port facilities.
Yes, but it's not that simple, Foxo.
Because other parts of the army want to use the rail network.
Yes.
And the Air Force needs, the army needs it more. The Navy can use its fucking boats.
Yes, we're talking about the Royal Navy, though, Foxo. Which was
the Royal Navy repeatedly.
which was predominantly based up in Scapa Flow for the majority of both world wars in terms of heavy capital assets, when we're talking about the UK. And I'm sorry, but the best way to get things to Scapa Flow was to ship it mostly by rail and then ship for the final part of the journey.
He's not wrong, Foxo.
Yeah, but a lot of it went by boat. Most of it went by boat.
No, most of it went by train.
Because the best way to get... Because of
I know you don't like train infrastructure, but...
Because of the way Scapa Flow works, you can't do the same level of port resupply you would from coastal shipping normally. The best thing to do was to ship most of it by rail to northern ports and have a large fleet of much smaller vessels carrying the supplies out to the anchored battle fleets. Because of the way Scapa Flow worked. There was also...
Disagree.
But that's just the way that was the way it worked.
Yugishi's basically never liked railway stuff.
But that was the way it worked. That's not me saying. That's not me saying. That's my opinion. No, that's fact. Like everything from the Jellicoe specials with the Welsh coal, all the way up to shells, food, supplies. That's how...
Specialist convoys that did nothing but go from Merseyside to Orkney.
Yes. Okay.
And how do you get to Merseyside?
Yeah, that's my next point. How do you get the goods to Merseyside? Like trains can't travel on water, so they have to go by sea. But to get them to Merseyside, they aren't coming by road.
Well, most of it's fucking made in Merseyside.
I mean, I would argue against that one. I don't think that all of the shells and coal and food were.
Yeah, it was taken down from the mountains on the trains and then refined in Merseyside.
You don't
and then moved by train.
You don't refine coal, and you don't refine shells, and you don't refine food. This is just a fun, like normally.
The manufactured products were made a lot around Merseyside. It's why Merseyside to Birmingham is so fucking important.
Yes, but
I would also point out that so many of the other factories made based elsewhere that were.
Yeah, you can't. It's not all being done in Merseyside. The Royal Navy's just not. The Royal Navy's not going to keel over dead if Merseyside ceases to exist. Because not everything. Not everything for the Royal Navy was made in Merseyside.
That's where 50% of the sailors come from, so...
Yeah, but...
Anyway, I just...
Trust me, Fleet, it's not worth it because she despises train infrastructure. We've had this debate many a time.
Anyway, so, where was I? So through that. So that was a Discord question. What if the French kept up a slow production of the RSC 1918? What on earth is the RSC 1918? Oh, the Fusil Automatique 1917. Ah! Okay. That's the French, was it a... Oh yeah, that's the semi-automatic rifle that they had to get rid of. That they stopped building because the war ended and they were broke. Yeah. Yeah, so assuming that they've replaced their... Given that they've replaced their rifles with semi-automatic rifles, you're talking about an overall increase in firepower for the French infantry section, given that there's now two armies in the war, the United States and the French, who have whose rifle sections are fully equipped with semi-automatic weapons. You've still got the problem that the Germans are sat there rolling natural 20s. And I'm sorry, but unless you have something that means that the Germans no longer roll natural 20s during the Battle of France, you can't say France. Unless you have some way that the Germans' natural 20s are no longer natural 20s, you can't say France.
You cancel the... Well, if you're going to go by D&D terms, a natural 20 does not mean an automatic success. A natural 20... If a challenge rating is... Say a challenge rating is of 25, even and you do not have a plus modifier, do not do so. So, theoretically speaking... Let me finish. I'm getting to it. By making the French stronger... the Germans rolling a nat 20 might still not pass the check.
You're not
Dragon,
You're
Dragon,
not...
You're actively making the French weaker, though.
I don't know about this rifle, perhaps, but in general,
either way.
It's a way to get them stronger.
This is a rifle that doesn't function properly once it gets wet.
Yes, I'm just saying in general, there is
but I will
ways
also...
of saving France outside of Germany doesn't roll nat 20s.
Yeah, but what I will say is that it does, like I say, it doesn't really matter much. And in fact, we're barely even touching the outcome of the Battle of France. France just, we're really not changing it. We haven't changed.
We've got a rifle that don't work.
I mean, I'm sure with 20 years of slow rate production, they can probably work out the kinks.
They would likely have figured problems out.
Yeah, but the issue is that it gets reworked into a completely different rifle because it's the entire loading mechanism that's fucked.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. But again, that's really outside the scope of the question. Yeah, you're really outside. That's outside the scope of the question, and I don't really want to get into a long diatribe on it. Like, I'm not saying you're not wrong, but we're...
It's a specific model.
Yes, I am aware of that. However, that doesn't really... Like I say, it doesn't matter because we haven't changed anything to change the timeline, which was the main scope of the question. You've not really changed the other nations. There's no... Like, just because the Germans have adopted a semi-auto rifle... The German army, again, isn't... Like I said, the German army isn't really bothered about adopting a semi-auto rifle because, again, their whole squad setup of the modern German army post-1930 is you have a squad leader with an SMG, another guy with an SMG to help with close-in work, a section of riflemen, I think it's 4, and then a 3-man machine gun team. And the whole purpose of the squad is to flush people out into the fire of the machine gun, support the machine gun. So that doesn't really... You don't need semi-auto rifles for that. The Kar 98K will serve fine. So that doesn't change the Germans. The British have an excellent semi-auto in the form of the Lee Enfield and its derivatives, and they don't really need to change their doctrine. So again, they won't change their rifle.
Please, did you just call the Lee Enfield a motherfucking semi-auto rifle?
No, I said bolt action. I just said rifle. I didn't say semi-auto. I just said decent rifle. I didn't say semi-auto.
I swear you said a decent semi-auto rifle.
Nope. The Lee Enfield
I'm not sure, so I'm not taking either side.
The Lee Enfield is not a semi-auto rifle, it's a bolt.
Well, yes, we know that, but that's not what she was saying. But... Anyway, moving on.
Blackburn Maximus.
Oh, no, fun fact. Quick fun fact. They did make a fucking zebra action version of the Lee Enfield.
Why? But anyway, moving on. So that was a YouTube question, Discord. Brandon Larson, what if the idiotic plan that was Operation Market Garden was never implemented and instead of Marshal Moron getting the fuel, Patton got the fuel he needed to punch through the Siegfried line? Well, first of all, you're making an awful lot of assumptions. Second of all, you're insulting long-dead men who were trying to do their best to win a war. And were not perfect. Thirdly, yes, Foxo said, Market Garden very nearly worked despite all of the problems with it.
You know, it worked. On 8 out of 9 landings, it worked. it allowed the Royal Army Division to go zooming through Holland unopposed until that one bridge. We don't talk about that one bridge.
I feel like we kind of I feel like we kind of have to, because that was part of the operation. It was a 89% success given how the operation was actually intended, and in terms of areas of in terms of moving the front, regardless of whether or not you actually crossed the bridges, the front did still move in a drastic way.
Yes. It's just the case of it was more successful than pretty much every other paragraph of the war.
I'm not denying that.
People still used to hate on Montgomery.
Yeah. But, again, and even if Patton got the fuel he needed to punch through the Siegfried line, doesn't really matter, because the Siegfried line is a piece of wet paper by the time the Allies get to it. A lot of the people who were supposed to be manning it have been stripped to go do other things. It's a paper tiger.
And it's also a case that fuels with the Royal Army Division, and they really do not like Patton. And you've got to get British fuel out of the British Army and give it to the Americans.
Yeah, it's like
the British Army gives fuel.
Yeah, I will point out, it's not just Allied fuel reserves. The British have their supply train, the Americans have theirs, and occasionally occasionally fuel is shunted between the various different armies. Occasionally.
Yeah, but it's more the fact that a lot of the fuel for Market Garden for the Second Armoured is 110 octane. You do not put that in a Sherman. It's aircraft fuel. Troubles go back. Anyway, I'll depower again.
Fair enough. But yeah, like I said, it's not as simple as Montgomery being an idiot and Patton being a genius, given that both of them had
honestly, if anything,
given that both of them had their moments of triumph and their moments of complete and utter stupidity.
Yeah, and if anything, honestly,
it comes
because British, but honestly, a lot of people tended to prefer Montgomery over Patton.
Honestly, it comes down to the fact that both were men. I maintain that Patton was by far the more flawed man than Montgomery, given his almost ludicrous given his, the fact that he was a southern racist from the south of the United States, and of course, was also quoting lines like the Anglo-Saxon domination of the world post-war, which I had to basically pull him up on and slap him for. Oh, and the slapping of wounded men in hospitals, which, Montgomery never did. And, the constant press problems that Patton had, and, all of the other idiocies that Patton did. I could go on, but the point I'm making is, Patton makes Montgomery look like the inept commander he was. Are you serious? Are you trying to make Patton out to be a better commander than Montgomery? Did Montgomery get pushed back by the Germans? Did he end up losing ground at all? Did his offensives fail, apart from Market Garden? This is my thing. I don't... I feel like you've got an axe to grind on Montgomery that is completely that is not based in the historical record. It should not be a case of Patton versus Montgomery. It should just be a case of wartime commanders being wartime commanders. No, I'm talking to the person who... I'm talking to Brandon. Okay. And couldn't you say that a officer letting the soldiers and commanders under him get on with the job to the general plan is laid out is also a good commander? Knowing when to not micromanage the operation, and when not to slap your own side. But again, we're getting off topic. They were, at the end of the day, both men. Both men fighting a war against a horrifically brutal dictatorship. and both doing a good job. So where were we? Did I say the Leonfield was semi-auto? Sorry, I misspoke. I meant to say bolt action. Blackburn Maximus. Favorite Azure Lane ship girl from either the Iris Libre or Vishia Dominion factions. No idea what either of those two are. And I don't play Azure Lane, so I don't have a favorite. Like I said, it's Dragon or Foxer who have to answer those ones because I don't play Azure Lane.
Richelieu.
There you go, Richelieu.
The priest that can stop an army of questionable fox girls. But yes. Dragon.
Where was I? So that was that. That was that. That's not a question. 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 You're typically going to have thoughts on USN SSBN 41s for freedom. Why didn't they build a single universal ship class instead of 5 classes? USN SSBN 41 for freedom. Let me just have a look, 'cause I have no idea what he's on about. Oh! Oh! Oh, you talk about the 5 classes. Oh, those! Oh! Oh, that's really quite simple. Basically down to the fact that they were continually iterating on what a ballistic missile submarine could and should be as they were going on. And while some of the boats were built in parallel, some weren't. And there were slight tweaks in design. So, yeah, that's why. They wanted to... They were going through... And there were years between the designs being laid down. So they, again... It comes down to the fact that they were iterating across a 5-year period as the ships were being laid down.
A young technology progresses very quickly and changes very quickly.
Like, in the period from 1959 to 1963, when the first and last of the 41 Freedom boats were laid down across the 5 different classes, you're talking about a variety of different changes. And also, more to the point, I think they were trialing different systems. And also, it doesn't really matter. Like, the thing is, whatever the point is, enough must have changed between the classes for the United States to call them different classes. So, they must have a reason for it.
Just like changing the missiles they're firing. That tends to be a big thing.
Or even something, or maybe they use different styles of reactor. Or different reactors from different clients. Again, these are all things. What was I gonna do? Come on, think.
Hello, you've got me for like 15 minutes.
Oh, very quickly. Well, since I have you 15 minutes, this is a question. So basically, it's the USN SSBN's 41 for Freedom program, asking why why they didn't build one single class of SSBN, but instead 5 different classes.
They were still learning how to build classes. They were still learning how to effectively build SSBNs, and missile technology was evolving very quickly.
Literally what we said.
Yeah, when you look at the missile evolution that occurred in that period, it was quite substantial. And that evolution That was allowed, whatever that was.
Yep, me too.
That was a handbrake, I think.
Ugh.
Really drove size requirements, and so across the 41 for freedom, you'd have subs that were restricted to certain missile types and couldn't go with newer, better missiles that were longer ranged. And you also had dramatic improvements in submarine quieting, improvements in sonar, and improvements in hull design and stuff like that that just necessitated multiple classes. And the other thing is, for something like SSBNs, you're not going to have a single class of 41. Like, you're just not. Even if we wanted to do that today, and I think there is an argument for actually dramatically increasing the fleet as New START fails and the US is finding themselves having to contend with a rapidly nuclearizing China, shifting much more to a US or Russia style view of nuclear warfighting. A lot of people look at the Chinese like it's still like they still take the Mao approach, and they do not anymore. But I suspect we're going to end up seeing either a Columbia Flight 2 or a follow-on class of BN to the Columbias to increase numbers, potentially into the 30s. But, you know, that's not going to be a singular Columbia class that does that. SSBNs are important enough that you don't do that. They're not like frigates or destroyers. So
yeah. What I will say
anything
is
else for me in the next little bit you got?
Let me just have a look. I'm very quickly checking to see if there's anything else modern period that we need to deal with while you are here quickly. Modern. Nope, nothing modern. The only thing I do want to announce quickly is that I have actually, all being well, got the Chieftain coming on the 16th. So look forward to that, everyone. But yes, so the only thing we have to do now is keep going on. So, what's the next question? Favorite steam train?
There's now another modern question.
Is there? Oh, typical.
Yeah,
Absolutely
gunnery
typical.
officer again.
Of course, that's not surprising. Alright, you get this one answered early simply because Cyclic is here. Thoughts on the USAF retired E8J stars? Hang on, we already did this! We literally... you were here, and we literally answered this question on the E8J stars. You know the ones with the look-down radar? For ground work?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
we did this. We did this one.
Alright, well, there you go.
Typical gunnery officer, you need to make a note of when we answer make a list of the questions you want to ask, and then make a note of when we've answered them, because we're remembering we've answered them and you keep forgetting. Anyway, something me and Cyclic can actually answer. Favorite steam train? Well, for me, I have to go with the Hearts Mounted 210-2 tank engines. I love the black and red tank engines. Very nice. Chunky things.
I mean, as a red-blooded American, there's really only two choices: the T1 or the big boy, and I can't decide between either one, so I'm going to say both.
If I have to choose an American engine, I know this is going to sound weird, but I actually have a soft spot for the United States Army Railroad Administration 282 Heavy Mikado. I really like how it looks, especially in matte black. It's the
It is sort of like the classic American steam locomotive. Unless you're looking at those early prairie type.
Yeah.
But yeah. I say early, they're not actually early, but they're sort of, when you think of an early steam train in the US, that's what people think of.
I thought that was the American, the 440s.
I mean, it's all that.
Yeah.
That style with the conical funnel,
the big spark arrestor, the wood burning, the wood in the tender, you know. And,
well, they had wood and coal, but yeah.
And paintwork so
and the
bright.
big triangular cow catcher. And...
Yeah. Paintwork so bright it blinds you if you look at it funny.
Give me the Duchess of Hamilton Noel Mallard any day.
Oh, come on.
Or
That's
if I
a-
want something,
You got
Or
me
if
I
for
want
5
some-
more minutes.
yeah.
or if I want something truly ludicrous, it's like the 484484 AD 60 from New South Wales over the Garrett type. How big do you want?
Okay, thoughts on the... Okay, very quickly. Again, you're getting this one because Cyclic's here. Thoughts on the new United States Marine Corps, new ACV. Do you think it will replace both the LAV and the AAV?
Well, it's not going to replace the LAV. It's not even in that competition. The Marines have a replacement competition for that. I mean, it is slated to replace the AAV-7, so, like, I mean, that's what it's doing. It's already replacing that in units in Pac Fleet, and the Pacific Fleet. So, yeah, I mean, they are looking at a 30mm armed version. I don't know if that's going to be. I don't even think the Marine Corps at this point knows, but it's not known if the 30mm armed version is going to be on all of them, if it's going to be split between the platoons. Keep in mind, a platoon of these, I believe, is actually much larger than you would normally expect. I'd have to look at the Assault Amphibian Battalion sort of Orbat, but the Marines are kind of different in how they do things on these because of the ship-to-shore component. But as of right now, the infantry carrier ones are armed with a remote weapon station that either has a 50 cal or a Mark 19 on it. We'll see if that 30mm ACV-30 ends up replacing all of them, because there is no turret basket for it. It can carry the same amount of troops. The ammo for the 30mm is stored in the turret, separated out from the troop compartment by armor. We'll see, but overall the AAV-7 is absolutely being replaced by the ACV, and it's a much needed thing. Whether it's less mobile or not, I don't particularly care. For 8x8 APCs, you can generally get most of the ground pressure requirements dealt with. There are some potential issues in thick, soupy mud, but again, those are things you can design around. Trust me, as somebody who drives an F-350 through thick, soupy mud quite regularly for work, you can deal with it, and an 8x8 is going to be infinitely better than my tricked out F-350 service body that has a whole shitload of off-road capability added in on top of it.
My goodness.
It can be quite fun, though I have had to winch myself out of some situations before, but in order to secure the winch to something, I actually had to get a 2x8 out of the... I had to get a 2x8 out of the back just so I could get to a tree myself, because I was unable to walk in the stuff. So
if only you'd had a scorpion, then you would have thought, oh, I'm fine, I'm not sinking, then gotten out and sunk up to your knees and.
I mean, that's literally what happened. It wasn't to my knees; it was to my waist. It was to the point where I physically could not walk. So I had to like pull myself up onto the truck, get the 2x8 out of the back, and use the 2x8 to help me with flotation in the mud myself. But yeah, no, like, I mean, the ACV is designed for coastal operations. This is the sort of thing you see in coastal environments. This is what I deal with at work, although not with, 8x8s, just with regular, with our fleet vehicles. But I mean, regardless, I think it's an appropriate trade-off for the Marines because of the operational mobility it gives them once they're ashore. Particularly if they're in, say, supporting the Finns, because the Finns are now a NATO member. And
Whoa.
Finland as a, or, if they're supporting the Norwegians in the Arctic, like either one of those, second Mardiv. This is a really important mission for them. It's very useful. But on that, I'm going to have to end it because I've got to get back to work. My lunch break is ending right now. So
Right.
y'all
Farewell,
have a good
Cyclic.
one.
Nice having you. Oh, that was nice. Cyclic for 10 minutes. Very nice. Right, okay, where was I? Back to work. Back to your regularly scheduled programming.
Well, it's not scheduled at all because Fleet doesn't do scheduling properly.
No, but then again, that gives me the freedom I like. Where was I? It was a YouTube question. My favorite 2 times we did that one, and then we did 2 up-to-date questions because Cycling was here and needed to answer them quick. So that would be one for you, Dragon, specifically. Brandon Larson. Question for Dragon. You're in command of the New Republic Defense Force during Operation Shadowhand. What is your overall strategy in dealing with the Reborn Emperor and the Galactic Empire's powerful military forces? Hey, Dragon. Hey, Dragon. Guess what? Guess what? Guess what? Guess. Go on, guess. Turn on the printer, Dragon. You know you want to.
You know what? It's time to
Turn
make
on
use of
the
all those
printer.
You know, it's time to make use of all those Imperial-class Star Destroyers we looted.
Oh, I thought you were going to turn on the printer.
It's time to return to the days of the Empire. We just ignore the fact they've now got a new symbol on them. Operation Shadowhand. I'll quickly double check that's what I'm thinking because I think that's the Return of the Emperor. I will quickly double check. Go away, Project 71. You're done. Yes, it's the one following the wake of Thrawn and the return of what's it called Palpatine. Oh wait. Yep, red on Palpatine. I don't know how many of the Nebulas and Endurance we'll have up at this point. So as I scrape together what we can. The main forces we'll be fighting are the Imperial 1s and 2s combined with Tectors and Allegiance. The big threats are the 2 Super Star Destroyers, admittedly.
Eclipse 1 and Eclipse 1 and Eclipse 2. Those things are...
Eclipse 2. Well, actually, I'm more worried about Sovereigns.
How many of those do they have knocking around?
Not many, but enough to be worried about. Then you've also got a couple of standard Executor class. So, basically, we'll have to calculate for this. Also, they've now got the new TIE droids, which are terrifyingly powerful fighters. And these really don't care about suicide attacks, let alone world devastators of cruisers, battleships, and Dreadnought classification, as we see what happens to Mon Calamari. Anything, this is why I agree with the various different points that are made out by the Rebel Command earlier on, which was Imperial Handbook. Come hither. Also, I'm terrified of the deep dock fleets. So for one, we need to find these mobile dry dock fleets. Because they can genuinely work entire fleets of hundreds of Star Destroyers all at once. Honestly, might be a time to start trying to get our own interdiction cruisers. It might be some of the only ways for us to work. So, mass production of Nebulas and Endurance, because those are basically our only hope. Get them on Callas going. They combined with this. Try and get a couple of Viscounts out. Basically use them as big target ships to, if anything, try and lure in enemies. Honestly, we've also just dealt with Thrawn, so try and adapt some of his tactics. Like, the New Republic is almost on its knees, to be honest. We would need to account for this. It'd be an unpopular opinion, but honestly, I would say try and start looking to clone soldiers again. Because we do not have the armies to keep fighting these wars. And since I don't have foreknowledge, potentially, yeah, get me more clone soldiers. I don't know how the war might change out. And as I'd recoup the various different Imperial shipyards we can, honestly also try and convince a number of the Imperial Moffs to change sides. Because admirals like Ardus Kane, for instance, was basically forced into this. If we can basically get him in the Pentastar alignment out, for instance, we can divert enemy forces in that regard. We also don't know the location of Biss, so we have to deal with that. Yep, Lusankia is indeed in service under Xanazard. You've got the Reaper from Warlord Zinj, and you've also got Ardus Kane's personal Star Destroyer. Or Super Star Destroyer. So there is a potential quite large number of enemy foes. Also, the enemy are using better fighters, so it's time to bring out basically the best fighters we can as well. And see if we can finally get the bloody budget from the Council. Because the Empire's forces are overwhelming at this point. It is the most powerful force the Empire has theoretically ever put out. We can't match them in numbers, we have to match, and we can't really even match them in technological superiority in most regards. So it's going to come down to tactics. Hit and run attacks, take out the various command ships, and use interdictors to prevent ships trying to escape. And pray they don't use the super large Viper commando droids. Honestly, like, Palpatine had the better plans to conquer the galaxy. It genuinely comes down to usually some Mary Sue reason why he loses. That's the entire reason why the New Republic win Operation Shadowhand. Luke falls to the dark side temporarily so that he can basically kill Palpatine. If that doesn't happen, we're dead. To be blunt.
I literally... Hey Palpatine, hey Palpatine, guess what? Cinder block! Yoink! Just from behind him. And I know that's not what actually happened, but...
Also, not only that, we've also got the galaxy guns to contend with.
Yay.
Which are just, I blow your planet up at range.
Whoopee. I mean, I don't know why they needed the galaxy gun for that, rather than, just building missiles. Why does it need a gun?
Well, the galaxy gun fires a hyperspace warhead.
Yeah,
but it's basically a giant hypervelocity accelerator, which powers a hyperdrive warhead.
Yeah, I just feel like just have a missile. Just have a missile that goes into hyperspace, because the gun itself doesn't send them into hyperspace. It just shoots them, and then they go into hyperspace themselves. It's like...
It also gives them a number of other capabilities, and actually, basically... It's a weird thing, because they do have their own fields, but effectively... to basically take a Star Trek term, it uses a different warp field. So, the Galaxy Gun initially can launch that shell far faster than the hyperdrive on board the missile. Like, we're talking about, 0.25 hyperdrive ratings here. Versus, a Class 1 hyperdrive found on the missile. But yeah. Hope the Space Wizards can do something and do what else we can. Because also during this, I'm having to contend with the, what's called, Rebel Council. Which is something I would rather not be doing. And welcome, Foxo. It sounds like you are now home.
Yep, ordering pizza with big tits.
Remember, you're not on your server at the moment. Oh well. Hey, science fiction is actually the place I have the most knowledge in. I do decently with coming up with some Navy stuff, but science fiction is where I can truly excel.
Where was I?
Just after Brandon Larson's question.
Yes, which was...
So that was a Discord.
Yes, so, final few questions now as I'm making this a 2-hour-long ramblings. Just because it's nice and easy, and we've got a fairly small audience, so we can also
restart the Fox breeding program.
And also it stores up questions for next week, because next week will be an extra. So
I hope you've been grabbing these questions.
Oh, you haven't?
I'll go back through. Problem is, I've been busy doing stuff. My computer's really freaking out at the moment.
Oh, bloody hell!
Well, it's because I'm doing a high intensity mod pack. I said I'll go back. And grab
just go back and check the rifle. Yeah, that rifle's just hurting the French, because that's the one I was thinking of. That doesn't work.
It really doesn't.
We've got it.
We've done it. So, follow up to my later golf question from RG on YouTube. What if Center Force only finds out Surigao Strait Force and Task Force 58 are off Samar after exiting a fog bank at battle range? They die. They die very quickly.
Kaboom.
Like, it's over in half an hour, and no Japanese ship escapes. Not a destroyer, not a cruiser, not a battleship. Because you brought the Surigao Strait Force up. That is a metric arse ton of cruisers, destroyers, PT boats, etc. And you've got Tassel 58's battleships, cruisers, and destroyers, and you've got all 6 of the standards. Yeah, that's not even a fight. That's just death. That's just death by United States Navy. Admiral Wellesley asks, is there a good gun artist out there who's willing to do requests? Not that I know of.
Gun artist.
Could we call an assassin a gun artist? Because they're an artist.
What do you mean by gun artist? Exactly.
If it's someone who, if you want guns drawn, go to Seoul.
Sol.
If you want guns drawn, go to Texas.
If you want guns...
True.
Way. We're incredibly funny.
Are we?
Yuki, that was one of the best jokes ever. Shut up.
Sea Dodders, what on earth is that? It's like... half the flipping ship is missing!
Oh god, it's that weird carrier idea. Basically, all along the outside rim of that is hangar bays. I hate it.
Half the ship is gone.
It literally misses the point of a Star Destroyer.
Exactly, it can't destroy.
Why? If it's at a
Exactly.
bad angle, you can just shoot through it instead of hitting it.
Yeah, exactly.
The problem,
You
that's
can't.
exactly,
The
here's
thing
the
is,
problem.
you can't destroy stars.
You now
Hey!
have so much less internal mass to work with.
I mean, who needs crew anyway?
Wait. Right. So,
Structurally, it actually works, but it's still silly.
So that was that. That was that. Fleet's favorite Finnish Navy ship of all time. Probably one of the submarines. Because all of them had fairly interesting wartime careers. But any of the submarines, basically, because they all had fairly interesting wartime careers. Probably the one I've been on. I can't remember which one it was now, the exact name of it. But I've been on one of the old Finnish World War II submarines. It was a small boat. I would have hated to have gone to war on it. Blackburn Maximus. What if the British in 928 adopted the Peterson semi-auto rifle in 2.76 Peterson? I'm
Boxer, you're the one who I know who knows anything about small caliber. If it's not 20 mil, it's not a gun.
Oh, which rifle is this? Can you say its name again?
The Peterson semi-auto rifle in 2.76 Peterson, and the British are adopting it in 928. Apparently.
Can you put that in chat so we can just get the name of it quickly?
Okay. I can do this.
We answered that one on Monday, I'm pretty sure, Brandon. William Seawood. No, Yuki, I agree with Zui. It shouldn't have been ended.
Oh, this one. But it's the Ruger action rifle.
The what?
Take your word for it.
Yeah, it's a case of cool, but it's an American rifle, and the British. It went against the M1 Grand, right?
They put a 2.76 caliber rifle against the Garand, which can actually fire full-size rifle cartridges, and which the US wants full-size rifle cartridges, and they expected it to win.
Wait.
Yes.
Point .276 is a 7mm rifle round.
Yeah, I'm aware
It's
of that.
7mm by 51.
Yes, but Foxo, the US wanted 30-06. The Garand offered them 30-06, so the choice was not even a contest.
It was a contest because it was actually quite the contest. It was just found that it didn't fit the mechanical reliability standards the American Army wanted. And if it's shown to the British, the Brits are going to say the same thing. Except for the British Army, its mechanical reliability standards are much higher up until 1941. Even then, you see what likes to the Sterling. It's a case of the British would adopt it, then not particularly like it, because the rifle didn't like water, it didn't like mud.
What
It's one of
rifles
those
do
things-
like these, though, really?
It didn't like the rifle.
Well, it's more of a case of most bolt actions to a degree don't mind it. A lot of sort of in the 50s, you sort of figure out how to make a semi-auto rifle work in the wet.
Although the Americans somehow did it with the Garand.
Yeah, but the Grand.
Is it almost...
I know it gets a lot of love, but it's got its issues as a rifle.
Oh, well, yeah, no one's arguing that.
And it's a case of, if you ever had to strip one, it was very apparent. Well, it's just a case of, it's a cool rifle. The British would probably adopt it for special forces. That's about it. Because I've just got an image of their firing groups from its rifle tests against the M1 Grand, and it doesn't fit British marksman rifle standards. So British marksmanship standards.
Indeed.
So,
right. So, next question. So that was that. We need a question from...
they need another tornado.
We need...
They don't need typhoon. They just need another tornado.
Apparently, Typhoon's coming next update.
Yeah, I'll believe that when I see it. Oh, then again, it's...
It's the thing they've been leaking and such.
Then again, it's
so-
more pandering to the fucking shills at top tier. We need more World War II stuff.
Give
Don't
me
need more
a-
early Cold War stuff. Early
give me
Cold
the-
War,
No,
when
give me
people
the-
were batshit insane.
No, give me the AC-3, the Australian cruiser tank, with twin 25-pounders.
Honestly,
And
given
its turret.
everything else they've added, yeah, give us that.
Like, give us some of the.
I'm sorry,
stupid
no. Give us the
Australian
funky
stuff.
Centurions.
Come on, you take me to bam, ba down,
Give-
punk it down,
Chief-
bam,
you know,
ba
if you also want a Cold War vehicle, give me the Jagd Chieftain, which was an actual thing. Like, it's
Oh.
genuinely a casemate tank destroyer based off the Chieftain.
Please tell me it has a gun bigger than the one the chieftain actually carries, because otherwise it's no point.
No, it has the same gun, I
Then
believe.
why bother?
Because
whole-
it was a test bed.
It's much better protected. It's much better protected.
Yeah, I get that, but like that's only one of the two reasons you go to a case. Well, it's only half the reason you go to a casemate. You go to a casemate to carry a bigger gun, usually. Otherwise, the loss of situational awareness and flexibility of firing angles just
Yep, the
isn't-
C Dollars put it in chat.
just isn't worth it.
Yeah, the casemated. But no, they made sense of the British Army because the British Army was planning on fighting on the defensive and wanted a low silhouette tank destroyer.
Yesn't.
Because it's a function of British Dunkerships, which is the funny part.
I still maintain that having there was no benefit to it. The chieftain already had protection that it needed. It didn't need more protection, and you're sacrificing a turret. And if you wanted to get the low profile from the
I think
chieftain,
there's a lot of also.
and if you want,
Get-
and if you want to get a low profile chieftain, dig a hole and put the
if anyone
chieftain
can
in
find
it.
it quickly in chat, FV3805 is a vehicle I would love to see. Because that is a very strange vehicle.
Oh, you're talking about the self-propelled gun version of the
Yes,
Conqueror.
that- Yes. It's not the Abbott. Nope, it's not the Abbott. Abbott's something different. Abbott would also be nice to see. But no, that's a 5.5-inch howitzer, I want to say.
Very
off the top
nice.
of my head.
There's either a 5.5-inch version or there's an 8-inch howitzer version.
Mhm. Give me right. If we're going to keep getting all these stupid artillery vehicles, give me the British one, which was given APDS and also it was given basically anti-tank rounds and anti-whatever that is over there.
Yep. Honestly, I think Seadollars has a point. Like, if they're going to give us SPGs...
Well, the problem is,
give us a
C-Dodders,
direct
it's
fire.
too late because they've already been adding massive numbers of SPGs.
Okay.
So,
Right, so...
Yuki, that's called the
that is
SU-122.
cool, Wellesley.
That is very
If I ever
cool.
go to Japan, I'll probably try and get
Oh
one of
yeah,
these, so.
oh yeah. Well, I think I'm being dragged to
You're
Japan.
being dragged.
Well,
I am
well,
not, thankfully.
funding dependent.
would-
Funding dependent.
Because I would
Unless
feel awful for that.
unless they're paying all my travel costs, I can't afford it.
We're in the same boat.
So unless Dr.
Like-
Clark is willing to pay all of my travel costs, I cannot afford to go. I have told him this numerous times.
You think that'll stop him?
It'll stop me. Rigwood.
Yeah, but knowing him, he'll find some. Even if it involves shoving you in a suitcase.
I will not be shoved in a suitcase. I either fly in a... Stop.
Anyway,
I know exactly why you've done that. No, leave that for later. And again, if you're going to Japan, it would make thematic sense.
Oh, for God's sake.
How to drive fleet to inside. Then again, since this is proper ramblings, Foxer, you should post about the E-Type.
oh
Now that-
yes!
now that it's finally finished.
I'm probably going to save it for Monday
Okay, right.
when we get a big audience.
Oh. That.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the version with the bonnet open's not ready yet.
I
So-
Well, also, that's
fucking
not
what?
allowed to be. That's also not allowed for the dry dock.
Again,
either,
I
so-
never asked for this.
Oh yes, but don't worry. From what I've been hearing, Dr. Clark's mother is entirely all for this, and is going to be apparently helping with some regards.
Oh.
Apparently, also possibly reaching out to some VTuber contacts.
Why? Why? I don't have a computer that can do all this stuff. I don't even want to anyway.
Oh, no.
What the...
Well, then again, don't worry. They have plans to fix that.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm not going to say no to a new computer, to be fair.
they're planning on changing that. No computer thing.
Yeah, I know. I've heard. I'm actually looking for a... I am looking for a... Did we just do a YouTube question? Or was that a Discord question?
I don't know. You're the one who's meant to be keeping track of these at the moment. Like, I'll be honest. I am very much looking forward to when Powder Monkey works. Because it'll allow me to keep playing games while actually doing these. I'll go back through the questions while I can find.
Oh, we did the whole Peterson rifle question.
Yes.
So that was okay. So Rose,
It's Peterson, not Penison.
yeah, that's what I
It's
said.
the hard D.
That's what I
It's
said. Peterson,
Yeah, you say it with a soft D.
Pedoson,
I'm sorry.
Pedoson.
Fleet, just stop. Just stop.
Rose asks, question for you, Fleet.
You were
Given-
saying Penison.
Given the
No,
new,
that was even worse, but-
given the new movie coming out, what is your favourite example of the Wallace and Gromit solution to a problem you've seen in military history? Literally all of Hobart's funnies. I rest my case.
No counterpoint. The use of cheese in warfare.
Oh, for God's sake! No. Wallace likes cheese, but it is not what he meant by a Wallace and Gromit solution. It's like a... So, YouTube question. Stephen
Right,
Mayer.
Rose.
Stephen Mayer. During the 1980s to 1990s, did the two Mint Essex would have been worth converting to Arsenal ships? What the heck are the two Mint Essex?
As in, best condition.
Oh, no. Absolutely not.
That's what mint means. As in, mint condition.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. first of all, the Arsenal ship is an incredibly stupid concept. Secondly, despite the fact they're in mint condition, they're still 40 to 50-year-old ships. Fourthly, it's the late 80s, early 90s. The Cold War is what is getting warmer, and then suddenly it's dead, so there's no real market for them. And you've got the Arleigh Burkes coming into service in the late 80s, which are more capable than whatever form of Arsenal ship these ships could ever be converted into, even as an individual platform, even whatever Arsenal ship form you might create from one of these Essexes. And Arleigh Burke, even in its first form, will be far more capable as a warship.
An Arsenal ship only works
They don't work.
doctrinally, and just as a unit, they could theoretically work if you take one of the large container ships.
But even then...
Because you shove it in a sea lane, and then you alpha strike the sea lane.
That's the... But
It
even...
doesn't.
But even... Arsenal
Yeah,
ship...
but it's a case of if you've got the missiles, you've got containers, you've got a container ship.
Yeah.
Why the fuck not?
Yeah.
But it's a total war weapon.
Yeah, and also... Yeah, first Foxo's right. And then again, and that's Arsenal ship in its most basic, bare-bones form, because that's the only way it works. These very silly concepts for Arsenal ships that came out in the 80s and 90s, where they're purpose-built military warships, are just silly.
Yeah, because an Arsenal ship makes use of stuff like some versions of Harpoon being able to self-track targets and find its own targets when given a bearing.
Yeah.
Right, that's the only way it works.
Yeah. So, finally, last question for today, which is going to be from YouTube. If I can find one.
Oh, Big Tits Pizza's clear.
Oh, we did that. So we did the Zuikaku one. We've answered what the Marines will do with Yamato if they get her. We answered that one already.
I'm glad no one else has called.
Okay, final. Oh no, that's not a question, and I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole, even if it was a question.
I wonder if people are just getting used to the way Foxo speaks at this
Again,
point.
that's the whole. Again, that's the same question. Marine Corps, Yamato. That's already been answered in a previous ramblings. I'm not sure which one, but I know for a fact I've answered it.
It definitely sounds familiar.
And I know because there's literally a Marine Corps Yamato made by Sea Otters that was inspired by that question. So I'm still looking for a last question.
I need more lightning spells.
Brandon Larson, have you checked out Modern Warships? No, I have not. I have not checked out Modern Warships, and a lot of the things, and that game is incredibly silly.
I'm back.
Modern Warships is an incredibly silly game, and I have no business playing something that inherently stupid.
Aren't they meant to, be for fun? Isn't that kind
Yeah.
of the point? Not to be taken seriously, to just have a mess around and have a good time.
We didn't get to the Taiho meta question today night, sadly.
Taiho meta. I'll have to go back and look at that because she's only appeared once in an event.
Yeah, but either way, like I said, if you want me to stand on that night, I'm not scared of Taiho meta because I don't play Azure Lane, and I don't even know what a meta is.
Meta ships are basically the survivors of dead timelines that have gained ludicrous power at a cost.
But Knight, let's be real. Horrors beyond your comprehension for Fleet aren't that scary because you can't comprehend them.
The best defense? See, I'm the one who will stop the Cthulhu mythos by simply refusing to contemplate them. Ultimate power!
That works in Cthulhu.
I know, it's great.
In Lovecraft, that works.
I know.
If you refuse to accept they exist, they can't... You're protected.
Yeah, it's like, fuck you, I don't care. Like, I know you're right there in front of me, but fuck you, I choose to not believe you exist. Fuck off. Just gives middle finger to Cthulhu, puts bag over head and plugs in ears. I can't hear you and I can't see you, fuck off.
Apparently, the whole modern
ignorance
warship
is
question
bliss.
was. Apparently, the modern warships one I think was more for Sea Dotters. What's it called than
Well,
the
it
fleet.
was the last question that it was on Discord, so there you go. But there you are, folks. That's the way the cookie crumbles. Thank you everyone for coming to Ramblings today. I hope you've had a fantastic time. Obviously, don't forget, as announced, Chieftain will be here, all being well, on the 16th of December. So tune in for that one. It's going to be great fun, I hope.
That's what, Sunday?
No, 16th is a Monday.
Monday.
It's going to be on Ramblings. For the second time.
Yeah, because Monday's the 9th. Well, not
16th.
So, yeah, but as in the one coming.
Yes, but it's going to be on the 16th, not the
Okay.
9th.
I'm just saying that
oh,
in general,
yes.
Monday's the 9th, and
Yes. Yes. No suit? What do you mean no suit? What do you mean no suit, Wellesley? What are you talking about? I want to see you in a suit. Well, I don't own a suit. The last time I was tailored for a
Then
suit
get one.
was more than a decade ago. And I don't have the money or the time or the patience. I need all three. I need some reason I actually have to have a suit. I do look quite good when I'm properly all topped and tailed, but
I'm sorry, you have to go full gangster weight.
over my dead body.
that can be arranged.
Goodbye, everybody. I hope you all had a fantastic time. And any
Please,
of,
Mum.
and,
Right.
and any
Class.
of,
Clark's
and-
mum,
and-
if you're watching this, buy him a suit.
No, don't. Or
And-
just send him
and-
a threatening letter.
and any of you who want to come to my server for Fleets Fun Fridays after I've had a 15-minute break to recharge my batteries, please do so. For the rest of you, I hope you've all had a fantastic week. Hope you enjoyed this week's timeline of videos from Drake's Drum on Monday to through the various recorded videos during the middle of the week to Ramblings today. And as always, take care, folks, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye-bye!